In this video, we're going to look at the quadratic inequalities topic, and I'm going to assume at this stage that you're okay with quadratic equations and how we solve them, because we're going to need that skill before we can move to this high-level concept. So, for now, let's pretend that that less than or equal to sign is just an equals. How would you solve this? We would factorize x and x. We'd look at the multiples, the factors of 6, so 1 and 6, 2 and 3, and we need to pick a pair that gives -1, so we would need +2 and -3, like that. Finally, we take each bracket, put it equal to 0, and then we solve for x. X equals -2 and x equals 3. So we haven't done anything new at this stage, okay? But with the quadratic inequalities topic, we have to factorize and we have to get the solutions -2 and 3. And just as a recap, this should be kind of revision, really. What does this process do for us? Well, it gives us the coordinates of the x-intercepts, where the graph crosses the x-axis. So -2 and 3 are these 2 points here. That's the whole point of solving a quadratic, is to find those coordinates where the graph crosses the x-axis. Okay, nothing new so far. If we now put the inequality sign back in this case, less than or equal to 0, we're asking ourselves the question, where on this graph is the y coordinate negative, less than 0, less than or equal to 0? Okay, if you were to put a dot on this graph and sort of trace your way around, where would the y coordinates be negative? So here, the y coordinate is very positive, okay, like whatever, +10, +20, something like that. And as we follow our way around the graph, it's getting closer and closer to 0, like 2, 1, 0. And then as we keep going, now the y coordinate is negative, -1, -2, or whatever. And then it's creeping back up again, -1, 0. And then as I keep going, it's now positive again. Okay, so I hope that little terrible animation there helps you to see that the graph was negative, kind of in this part here, between -2 and 3. Okay, and that is our answer. When x is between -2 and 3, x is sitting in between those two, that is when your y coordinate is negative. How do we show that as an inequality? Like this. Okay. Because it's got the less than or equals to underneath, we include that. The only difference between that and this would be this. Okay. So I hope that showed you where on this graph, when x is between -2 and 3, this is from our inequalities topic way back when we did our number line, -2 and 3, and x is between these two, like that. And if it was less than or equal to, we'd color this in. So that's a representation of this x-axis, okay? Between -2 and 3 is when the y coordinate is negative. Okay, what happens if I switch the inequality sign around and make it greater than? We can no longer use this kind of notation. Okay, let me explain what I mean by that. Let's pick up our kind of dot here and navigate our way around the shape. And we're asking ourselves now, where is the y coordinate positive? Okay, positive, 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 0, negative, 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 0, positive, positive, positive. And so you may have spotted that it was positive at two kind of broken parts of the graph. That part there and that part there. When it's not a continuous part of the graph like this one underneath, that was just one continuous part. Here we've broken the graph into two sections. We have to do two separate inequalities. Okay, when x is less than -2, like -3, -4, -5, the y coordinates will always be positive. Okay, so it's like an arrow to the left of -2, or we usually do a comma. X can be greater than 3, to the right of 3. Okay, 4, 5, 6, that will be a y coordinate that's positive. Okay, so for the greater than, we have to separate our answer into two distinct regions of the graph, x being less than -2 and x greater than 3, like that. Why have I got the calculator here? Of course, I love this calculator. We have the inequality function. Degree will be 2 for the GCSE. This is just referring to the quadratic power of 2. So we always put a 2 in here. And we've got our 4 options. So for the last one, we'll do greater than. I put in my coefficients, 1x squared minus 1x and -6. Press equals one more time and look at that. X is less than -2. It writes the second one back to front. I don't know why. You could put your answer like that, but I prefer to read this kind of right to left. X greater than 3. I write that like that. You could put either. That wouldn't be a problem. What would that look like if it was that? Well, we can just put number 3. Same numbers. The only difference is it's got the line underneath for both of these. Okay, if I change it into the less than that we had at the beginning, you can see that it's got that answer straight away. We can just literally use that in our response. Okay, so the quadratic inequalities, the only thing we've added on is this last bit about where is the graph positive and negative. When it's positive, you get 2 sections. When it's negative, you get the one continuous part that looks like that. You must include a rough sketch in your answer. They'll take a mark off for that. So please just do a very quick sketch like I did here. It doesn't have to be accurate at all, but try and make it look semi-decent, like -2 and 3. I've made them slightly further away from the y-axis like that. But that is necessary for all of the marks in this topic.